4 times a year, Max List hosts public events in our hometown of Portland, Oregon. This allows local employers and professionals to learn from HR leaders and job search experts and make new friends and connections. We recently teamed up with the School of Journalism and Communication at the University of Oregon to host a panel discussion about the skills communicators need to thrive in an uncertain job market. Here's a recording of our conversation.
Hello, good evening. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So nice to have you all here. Hello, I'm Regina Lawrence. I'm the interim dean of the School of Journalism and Communication at the University of Oregon. And welcome to the new home of the University of Oregon here in Portland. I'd love to see a show of hands. For how many of you is this your first visit to this campus? Oh my goodness, look at that. That's terrific. We're so excited to welcome you here. And this, of course, is the home of the SOJC in Portland. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the SOJC right quick before we get started. The SOJC in Portland is the home to a couple of research and industry outreach centers, including the Agora Journalism Center, which is all about improving local civic health through supporting robust local journalism. We're the home to the Oregon Reality Lab, which is a really innovative, immersive media research, teaching, and creative space just right across campus. Very cool. Come see it sometime. We also have a gorgeous multimedia production facility here, which serves students across our programs. We have 3 master's programs here in Portland. We have a multimedia storytelling, which focuses especially on video and audio storytelling, nonfiction storytelling skills for journalists and those in other fields. And we have a strategic communication program, master's program, which boasts, we were just talking about this just a moment ago, boasts so many alums around the greater Portland region, et cetera. And that program has been beautifully successfully led for so many years by my lovely colleague, Donna Davis. And she's standing over there at the table ready to tell you more. And Donna's also the instigator of a one-of-its-kind master's program in immersive media communication, which is a fully online program all about using technologies like extended reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, et cetera, to learn how to communicate effectively, strategically, ethically. So more information over there on the table if you're interested. We are so excited to have you all here and to be doing this event and welcoming Max List here tonight. I'm sure you all know that Max List is the premier organization for professional networking. Yep, give it up. We're so delighted to have you all here. And Mac has been such a wonderful friend, mentor to us in so many ways. So you all know Mac, he probably goes without introduction, but just to remind you all, founder of Max List, founder and publisher, and also, has just little things like 2 books to his name, Find Your Dream Job Anywhere, Find Your Dream Job in Portland, top Apple rated podcast, Find Your Dream Job. I think there's a theme here. So, Mac, we're so delighted to have you here. Thank you so much. And everybody, you're in for a wonderful treat, a really great conversation. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Regina. Of course, there's one blemish on my record. I am not a University of Oregon graduate, but I somehow have struggled through and think what I could have done if I had been a doc. So it's a pleasure, Regina, to team up with you. And I also want to give a shout out to your colleague, Tylay. Working with you to put this together has been a pleasure. And we're so grateful to have Oregon School of Journalism and Communication as our presenting sponsor. Let's hear it for Regina and Ty and Oregon. Other sponsors too, including our silver sponsor, Edward Jones, and our community partners. If you haven't been over to talk to these community groups and Edward Jones, please do so, particularly if you want to network. AMA PDX, Communications Network of Portland, PRSA Oregon, and Next Northwest. These are all great groups that have wonderful events. And if you want to meet people who are leaders in your industry, these are great places to do it. Let's hear it for our sponsors. Finally, last round of applause for the Maxlist team. Again and again, people say, "Oh, thanks for putting this together," and I'm so grateful that people thank us, and I mean that sincerely. But it's my teammates, Joni Wang, Lisa Kislenberry Anderson, and Susan Thornton Huff in particular, who put all this together. And please join me in thanking them for their good work. Now, let's get going. Again, I'm Mac Pritchard. I'm the founder and CEO of Maxlist. For those who might not know it, we're a regional job board, and we serve employers and job seekers in Oregon and Washington. Our mission is to help you find work that matters and to help employers to make the hiring process more human. And we do this through our job board and our weekly newsletter. But we not only want you to know about vacancies, we want you to have good job search skills, because when you invest in your skills, your search gets easier and it goes faster. So if you go to our website, you'll find hundreds of articles about how to look for work. Regina mentioned the books, the podcast, and we do events. So go to maxlist.org and you can learn more. Let's talk about our program for tonight. We're going to hear from our panelists for 30 minutes. Then we're going to take questions from you in the audience for 20 minutes. We'll close at 7:30, but don't leave. We got 30 more minutes of networking. And so remember, each of you is an expert. You and you all have so much to offer your neighbors and other people in the audience tonight. So I encourage you to take time to talk to others and meet as many people as you can. And above all, find ways to stay connected with people after the evening. Connect on LinkedIn or find other ways to remain in touch. Now, let's turn to our panelists. Let's start with, on my left, Felicia Rivers. She is the founder of Your Talent Ally. It's a recruitment and HR consulting firm, and she has a partnership with a firm of consultancy. Previously, Felicia was a top HR leader at Tillamook Creamery Association, Comcast, and Legacy Health. To her left is Nicole Leverich, who works for this other job board I've heard about. It's called LinkedIn.
You should connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think they're an up-and-comer. Keep an eye on them. I don't know.
Little competition. It's okay.
I'm so grateful, sincerely, that you're here, Nicole. You are the Senior Vice President and the Chief Communications Officer at LinkedIn. You are also a University of Oregon graduate. Yes. So think what I might have done and accomplished if I'd been a duck. But previously, you were the Director of Marketing and Communications at Mixpanel, and you've held jobs at Google, AdMob, and Yahoo. And to Nicole's left is Mark Kajitani, who's the Vice President of Operations at Meyer Memorial Trust. Now, previously, Mark was the Director of People and Culture at Oregon Public Broadcasting. And he was also the Human Resources Director at the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. Oh, I left my notes. It's the power of the paperclip. It keeps it all together. Well, let's do a quick read of the room. And I've got 3 questions for everybody here. Raise your hand if you work in journalism, communications, public relations, marketing, or advertising. Who works in those fields? Okay, good. Second, raise your hand if you're looking for work. How many people are doing a job search? Well, pretty good representation of the room. And finally, is anyone in the room considering a career changing careers? Okay, maybe about 10%. Let's start with you, the panelists. I've got opening question, a lightning round. In one word, how would you describe today's job market? Felicia? One word.
Difficult.
Okay.
Wow.
Good.
Complicated.
Okay. Well, let's talk about one of our themes for tonight, the communication skills that matter to employers. And I've had several people say, I don't work in communications. Is this going to be valuable to me tonight? And as communicators, your skills are going to help you get hired. But whatever your profession, if you're good at communications, that's going to give you an advantage too. So, Mark, you've done so much hiring over the years. What communication skills matter most to employers, particularly in this market?
I think right now, storytelling, of course, is central to every job applicant, every attempt to try and communicate who you are, and to be able to do storytelling in a way that is not extractive of other people, that uplifts your own or the communities that you're trying to, is very, very important. I think at the same time, skills around media literacy is super important, and especially in today's trying to protect today's democracy, and like being able to things and know where it's coming from, what went behind it. Like those things cannot be understated.
And how does storytelling make a difference when you're an HR manager and you're talking to a candidate? What kind of stories are going to make somebody stand out?
The story is the only thing I'm going to remember. I'll be honest. I'll put out postings, and my job is not necessarily to pick the perfect candidate, right? My job is to find out of my last posting had 800 applicants. I needed to find 12 that I could put in front of others. And I think that storytelling is the only thing that I had in the, maybe if I was really have lots of time, 5 minutes with an application. What is the story here? Can I see the art? Can I see the challenge that they did? Can I see what they're bringing to the table? What are the strengths that they're shining through and trying to show me this is what I would bring? I know myself well.
Felicia, what about you? What communications skills stand out when you're talking to people in interviews?
What I'll say is what Mark said is right on, and I would take it a step further. So when you're in the interview, have done your research on the organization that you're going to meet with. Think about, how can I share what I know in the answers to the questions? So as they're asking you questions, think about, how am I going to weave in my experience to show them that I can do what I need to do, which is an extension of the storytelling. But this is once you get in front of them. I think sometimes we get in front of them and we forget that's the piece where now, because we don't know you. And so this is how we get to know who you are and what you can do.
So Mark mentioned some of the elements of a story that he finds effective. What would you add to the list? He talked about arc and getting things done. What would you put on that list?
I would, I always think about, when you go into an interview, you're wanting to show that organization what you can bring to the table versus you trying to understand what they can do for you. Yes, obviously you need a job, you want a job, but you need to be trying to explain to them, here's what I can bring to the table.
In your experience, how many, if you talk to 10 candidates, how many people are talking about what they can do for the employer versus what they're interested in about the job? 2, maybe 3. So if you want to stand out, that's one way you could do it.
And they do stand out. I always know, I remember them.
Yeah. Nicole, one of the trends you're seeing at LinkedIn is people are moving away from credentials and to skill-based hiring. Tell us more about that. What is happening exactly? Why it matters, and how candidates can take advantage of that trend.
So is this working? No.
Keeps going.
Is this working? Yeah. No. Yes. Yes. Okay. I can also yell a little bit. So this is a reflection of what's happening in the world right now. I graduated from U of O in 1999, the Stone Age. I had my first email account. It was very exciting. The skills I learned how to write a press release were skills I used for 15 plus years. Now, in the environment that we're operating in, the skills that you need change every 6 months, every year. Yes, I need to know how to write a press release, but actually how you write a press release is fundamentally changed. So you get LLM visibility. I also need to know how to write a social media post. I need to know how to edit a video. So this is a reflection of how fast the world and the job market and companies are evolving. And so moving whatever skills I had. They're great. I'm not saying hide those, but show that you are curious and you are constantly adding new skills to your toolbox. And that's going to be what companies are most interested in, because the reality is they hire you for something now. I'm going to need something different 6 months from now. So I need somebody that shows they're willing to grow and change with a role.
What's your best advice about how far back to go in describing the skills you've learned? I mean, I'm guessing that putting down multi-mate is not going to be relevant, and no one under 50 knows what I'm talking about.
I remember when I graduated, I was really proud to put PowerPoint and Excel as skills. I don't think you need to go very far back, especially, the more years of experience. If I say I was a assistant account executive at a PR agency, okay, I kind of know the base set of skills you need for that. Focus more on the skills that are unusual, the skills that are going to make you stand out, the skills that show your adaptability. So those things, like, yes, a year ago, I would have said how to do prompt engineering. Right? That was a skill you should highlight. Now, most people know how to do prompt engineering. So what's the next version of that skill? And showing that you've got that arc of skill adoption over time. You're not a one and done.
Okay. So emphasize skills. Credentials, like a college degree, matter, but the days when that alone made a difference have long passed, haven't they?
Long, long past. And I think it's for the better. Right? Like, I'm very proud of my college degree, but that shouldn't be a barrier for awesome people to get a foot in the door. And so there is a leveling of the job market with that focus on skills. But you got to constantly be putting yourself out and proving that you're somebody that the company wants to have around the table long term.
Okay. Well, Mark, you talked about the communication skills that matter to employers right now, but what about not just why do employers care about communication skills at all? Not just for communicators, but people who are applying for other jobs too.
I mean, this is the human element of work, right? Like, you go to a workplace and you have to get along with so many people, and you have to communicate your vision on a project, both upward and outward and down, to get buy-in, to move people in a way that they want to be moved. And I think that's universal. And there are lots of tools out there to maybe help your message get across. But I also think that, like, being able to harken back, no matter how far the timeline is, through a story to say, like, I worked at this one place and I took on like figuring out how to organize all the photos, right, that go for a website. And like, that is still universal. And that is a problem every organization is still wrestling with, right? And surviving that process is something that you can champion, because that is something that will probably end up having to do some other place, right? And so just being able to, if you want to do those things, right? Like, only highlight the things you want to do, like that. Don't talk about it if you don't want to do it at the next job, right? That's essential. So I would say, again, like, whatever really is applicable, even how far back it is, like, it can be relevant in today's day and age. And it doesn't have to be like a marketing associate or a communications director. Like, people are doing that work all across. They are telling the stories across the state, across the communities, and they're trying to do it in a way that engages communities, uplifts people, again, and gives it in the most appropriate manner. So,
okay. Felicia, when you interview people, whether someone is a trained professional communicator or just has good communication skills, what are they doing differently in an interview?
The folks that are really good at interviewing, and then there's also the side of me that has to be careful about that too. But the folks that are really good are able to, when asked a question, tell that story. So, typically you all may have heard behavioral interviewing. Tell me about a time when X happened. And that person is able to tell you what the situation was, how they handled it. And that is how you're able to kind of help make that determination of, do they actually know what they're talking about? And then you can ask those follow-up questions as the interviewer.
If you were coaching somebody who was preparing to tell that story, what advice would you give them to do it in order to do it well?
All right, everybody get your pens out. This is a hack. When you are interviewing, the subject is you, and you are the subject matter expert. There are no trick questions. You know all the answers. The beautiful thing is if there's something you haven't done or don't know how to do, you can just say that. I don't have experience with that. You can always throw in, I'm willing to learn. But understand that you shouldn't be nervous because it's about you. It's about your experience. It's about your life. It's about what you've done. And you should be able to share that in a way. And I don't mean that in a, flip way. I mean, I want you to feel comfortable that you can share your experiences and not be nervous.
Yeah. So I'm so glad you said it, so that you should say, I don't know. Many people might think that an HR manager or recruiter might not want to hear that. What would you say to them?
No, we do want to hear that. Do you like that? No, we do want to hear that. But no, we want to understand what it is that you do know how to do. A lot of organizations are willing to train on certain things. I am really quick to ask someone a question and I'll say, it's okay if you don't know how to do that. When people say, oh, I don't really have experience, I'm like, don't worry that you don't have that experience. I'm just trying to kind of understand what you have done.
Okay.
Can I add on that?
Please.
I love it when somebody says they don't know, because it means if they're on my team, they're going to admit when they don't know something and then come to me and ask a question, which means it's going to be done right versus the, oh God, panic in the corner kind of situation. And then the next level interview is, I don't know how to do that, but... And then going into something that you do know how to deal or do, or how you brought that skill in. So I actually love it. More people should say they don't know.
Yes, agreed.
I'm going to triple click on that, right? And say okay, as a job seeker, this is also your chance to see how they respond to you not knowing.
Yeah.
Are they a growth mindset organization that is going to say, we accept people wherever they're at, they have a growing edge, and we're going to support that and move on? Or are they going to be an organization that just shuts you down and says, the first thing you don't know? And in some ways, it's a test for them too. And so I think if you can embrace it like that, again, the power dynamics in interviewing suck, right? Yeah. But if you can see it as you're trying to make your next best pick to find that dream job, their answers and how they respond to your questions is just as important.
I couldn't agree more. Sorry.
Yeah.
I tell when I'm talking to folks about interviewing, I tell them the interview is just as much for you as it is for them. Yeah. Because you are deciding where you want to spend the majority of your waking hours. Yeah. And it does matter.
Yeah. It's like dating, but more.
Correct.
Yeah. And if it's not a match, if the chemistry isn't there, there is only one job interview in my entire career that this happened. But I went in, I'd done all the phone screens. It was an in-person. They had me meeting with 3 different people. Everything on paper looked great. Everything everybody told me, the words they said sounded great. I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach. And it wouldn't go away. It did not feel right. And I got offered the job and I said no. And it was terrifying because I didn't have another job at the time. In hindsight, I learned more about that company. It was absolutely the right choice, but that's where you got to listen to yourself too.
Yeah. I do want to go back to a point you made a moment ago, Nicole, about saying no, but. Mm-hmm. And for those of us in the room who've worked in media relations, that's called bridging.
Yes. Right. Core skill.
Yeah. You're asked a question you don't want to answer. In this case, it's not that you don't want to answer. You're just acknowledging that this is an area where you don't have experience or knowledge, and that's a good thing. But when you do that bridge, when you move to the subject you want to talk about, how do you figure out what to talk about next?
I'm going to go back to grade school for many of us. When you're learning how to read, everybody's taught, if you don't know a word, you look for context clues. What are the words around that word that you don't know. So what I would say is you got to look for the context clues in the question and then make your no, but bridge to something in a similar vein, either similar subject matter, similar, oh yeah, that's a new technology, but this was a new technology a year ago and I really figured out how to do that. So you've got to take those context clues and take that into account with what you bridge to.
Terrific. Well, let's move on to the job market, and we got good one-word definitions from each of you about the current market, and let's talk about how you can stay relevant and resilient in your job search. Nicole, you're in the thick of it every day at LinkedIn, and I know you shared with me that it's a couple of years ago it was a job seekers market back in the halcyon days of 21 and 22. And candidates were in the driver's seat, weren't they?
Oh, they absolutely were. I mean, this is like the housing market too, right? Like I love using analogies because everything maps to something else.
Yeah.
It is a employer's market right now, but I chose the word wow deliberately because it is hard. It is complex, but there's also jobs that never existed before. And how cool is that? Right? That you can be the first person to figure out how to do a job. So you have to do that extra effort to stand out. You have to do all that extra work in this moment because, we posted an intern role on my team, and I think it was 1,000 applications in 1 week before we closed it. Well, that's a lot of kids to go through, and you got to figure out
a depressing figure that I hear a lot from applicants. They get frustrated because whatever site they use, they see the applicant count. So when you reflect back on that internship application or just applications in general, the people who do stand out in a field of 500, 750, 1,000 applications, what do they do to make that happen?
I mean, part of it is what you all are here today doing. The people who applied that had a referral, right? That knew somebody else on my team or within LinkedIn, or even had a second degree connection. Like, oh, I know you and you're applying for a job there. And so you can be my referral. That's the best way to stand out in the beginning. And
some people have the good fortune to have known someone, but
you can cold connect to generate
referrals. How do they do that if they don't already have a buddy or a contact?
There's this site called LinkedIn. We also have an awesome app. It is hard. I mean, I started in communications without a single connection to my name. And I will say every single job I've had from the first job, which I felt very lucky that I got, has been from a connection somewhere in my network. And so, hi, happy to meet you all. But you can also spend time on LinkedIn at these events and just see where people are. You can follow someone and see that, hey, I posted about this thing. You're also into that thing, and you can send me a message or a connection request with that. Even if you strike out 8 out of 10 times, you've got 2. And that gets you there. And I am always deeply appreciative of people who show the initiative to try to make that human connection. Because if you're in communications, that's the name of the game. It's making human connections. So if you're doing that extra to get there, I know you're going to do that extra when you're on my team.
Mark, how do you see people stand out in this employer's job market when they apply for a position?
I think, connection is key, right? That'll get you into the top 16 maybe, right? And I think that the challenge is that sometimes people approach networking only when they're in active search, right? Like you got to be networking all the time. And that doesn't necessarily mean it just means having coffee with someone. That means right when you've gotten your next job, you're still networking, you're still building that connections with people. And because it is the next job that you get through those connections, it's the next job. And so it is still a really small state, right? It is a small state, and most sectors are really small. And so people move around them all of the time. And I think at the same time, it's a weird world right now where a lot of employers, we did a lot of Zoom hiring, right? Like we interviewed people through Zoom, did all this pandemic hiring, and a lot of people didn't live up to the things that they talked about once they started to be in person. And so there's been this like rebound, reconnecting like back to the human authentic experience. And so when you're meeting with people, you have to be that human authentic experience that can't be just reading off a script into a Zoom meeting room. So I think like those are really important things. And again, like all the tips that Maxlist puts out there, they're true. The thank you notes, all of the things that like
thank you notes.
Right.
Do
Can't
thank you
even tell you.
notes. It's shocking how many people don't do thank you notes.
And when there's a choice between two people, I have done it more times in the 25 years I've been a recruiter. We hire the one that sends the thank you note. And the one who sends the handwritten one, holy cow.
Email's better than nothing, but
Email
that
is
extra
fine.
step.
I'm not saying you need to handwrite, but I actually still have them. I have gotten handwritten thank you notes.
Yeah. And the
but why is that? I agree with you. I've done my share of hiring.
Initiative. It shows the care. It is the largest signal of interest. And if they're doing that in this, what are they going to do on my team? Right? Like there is no better way to demonstrate that this is a proactive person who is thoughtful, who goes that extra mile than something like a thank you note, which feels so old school.
And I want to like triple down on what you two have said about the networking. Your networking has to be genuine, authentic networking. I cannot have Gabriella talking to me just because she wants a job.
Yeah.
I would like for Gabriella to truly want to get to know me and understand who I am. And I can help her. She can help me, because just because I'm over here does not mean you can't help me. And so we work together. I have someone that I've known for years that was looking for work, and they were networking with me and doing all these things. And then they got a job, and I'm like, hey, lunch? No crickets?
Yeah.
Those things, I won't forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of networking. I've been in with my company for 12 years, right? Which could be a very easy, like set it and forget it from a networking perspective. I view it as pennies in the bank every day, right? I do somebody a favor. I meet somebody new. I make a connection. I make an introduction. And this is like every level, every role, from an executive down to like the receptionist at the front door. If I can help somebody else, I believe that's going to come back to me. But also, you never know when that connection is going to pay off. So it's like you hear a really good song on the radio, you like add it to your playlist, you meet somebody great, connect with them. And you just never know.
Mark,
exactly.
Go ahead.
Because you never know who is going to go from receptionist to owning their own business. I mean, we put people in places that we shouldn't put them in.
Yeah. One of my biggest rules is if you're rude to someone at the front desk, no.
Yeah.
No way, no how.
You stories about that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Our check with the front.
I know.
Yeah, we do.
I do want to touch on AI because, Mark, you've talked a lot about the importance in a career and in a job search and in general about being human. How does that fit into the AI revolution we're experiencing now?
Ooh. AI. I mean, everyone's like, there's a AI bubble. It's destroying jobs. It's disrupting industries. But like, it's still a connection, right? It's right now, like kind of in that space, like, is it spell check or is it something different? Right. And so I think that like, in essence, the human connection is what communication is about. And I think that for many organizations like nonprofits, it's about authentic storytelling. And we're looking to make sure that job seekers know themselves authentically and can sort of stick to those talking points, can like uplift their story in the ways that we do that too. And like, that can't be done through AI. It might be able to be refined a little bit, but like, I think that for anyone who's still in active search, like, don't let AI be a barrier to you building the network that you need, finding the connections, because like The reality is like, you got to find something this week. You got to like structure your week in that search, and a certain amount of it has to be applying, and a certain amount of it has to be networking, and a certain amount of it has to be like just understanding yourself too. So like, don't let it be a barrier to your own success because it's too big of an issue.
Let's turn to professional groups. And Mark, I know you're a big fan as well of professional groups and the difference they can make in a career. What difference have you seen involvement in professional associations make in the applicants that you have met with in the past?
I think it makes a huge difference. Like if I know that they've been in some sort of cohort, whether it's like human resources or communications or other things, like I know that they understand community, right? And like whether that is community around a subject matter, like that really helps me understand that they're keeping up with the trends that are going on, the changes in that they have a community that's beyond just themselves, so that we all know like people call on others to figure out like, what should I do in this situation? And I want people that are connected. I want people who have community so that if they don't know, they can go out to their community to know who they can brainstorm with. That is the expectation for like everyone right now. Like you have to have your own brand and you have to have your own community. And there are many different forms to doing that. Like there's a lot of electronic forums, there's a lot of in-person forums, but like you have to have your community like set and you have to keep working on it. It's part of the ecosystem. You gotta water it all the time.
Yeah. We got to move on. I do have a closing question, and then we're going to turn to questions from the audience. For each panelist, what is your number one job hunting tip in this job market? In one or two sentences. Who would like to go first?
You have to go first.
Oh, great.
And I can steal your great idea.
Well, I have so many, no, seriously, I'm old school, and I'm a true proponent of doing your research and understanding who is this company that you're trying to work for? What is it that you can bring to the table? How do the skills that you have align with what they're doing? And oh, by the way, do they align with what you want? Because I cannot stress it enough how important it is for you to go work someplace that is meaningful to you. And there's not a right or wrong. It's what's meaningful to you.
Nicole?
I'm gonna go with approach this as having a dialogue, not doing a monologue. I think when people get in, they like just send out all the applications, they're putting themselves in a monologue. I'm just talking at all of these potential employers. When somebody wants to have a dialogue in the job search, they do their homework. They look for shared connections. They get curious about the company, and is the company the right fit for me as much as if I'm the right fit for the company? There's far too few people I talk to that want to have a dialogue.
Agreed.
Agreed with both of those things. I would say for me, it's mindset, right? It's like you get to choose what thoughts you want to entertain. And like the system of job searching is a bummer, right?
I think you were going to use another word. It starts with S.
It's a bummer. So you have to understand, like, you are in a system that is a bummer. So it's not your fault, right? It like cut yourself some slack, like uplift yourself, because it's the positivity, it's the knowing yourself, it's the knowing your strengths that will get you there. And everything else is a barrier that you have to figure out how to get over. And so like, it's the mindset that like you have to just figure out what thoughts to entertain and which ones you're going to say like, okay, I'm going to give myself like 10 seconds on Friday to think about it that way. But like the rest of it, just like keep going and you'll find that dream job, and then you'll find the next dream job, so.
Okay. Well, thank you. Let's turn to the audience and your questions. We've got 20 minutes to hear from you all, and we've got our first hand up already, and I see a second one as well. So My colleague Joni will take the microphone. When you do ask your question, if you could stand up and share your name. I think it was to your left, Joni. Bridget.
Way over in the corner. Hi, everybody. I'm Bridget Jackson. Great stuff tonight, panel. Thank you so much for sharing. What advice do you have for some of us more senior or seasoned job seekers, especially if we are choosing to enter a company that at a level that might belie our experience? You know, you might be in front of an HR generalist for your phone screen that looks at how long or, meaningful that resume is. And why are you applying for a job at this level? How do you answer that? How do you face the ageism
Here's what
traps?
I would recommend. Number one, I would shorten the years of experience that I wouldn't go back more than maybe 10 to 12 years. The other thing that I would do is this is where you use your cover letter and you say, I am looking for this opportunity and this is why. So you answer that question before they even ask it.
I would say that like a lot of companies are having folks who are retiring, right? There's a big brain group of like smart, thoughtful people who hold institutional knowledge who've just noped out, right? And so you, in your seasoned professionalness, are not that person who's coming in who needs to like be taught everything. And that is so helpful because I don't have time to teach anything, right? And so just like understanding, again, you bring your own strengths to whatever that role might be and like being able to uplift that because like I need seasoned professionals. I don't need entry level folks. And so like, again, however that is, just know that like organizations across the board are still having a massive exodus of folks.
And we had a question over here, Johnny.
I can't tell where you're pointing.
Could you raise your hand?
Hi, I'm Ellen. I'm a trauma-informed employee communications consultant, and I was meeting with a mentee earlier this week who asked a really interesting question about using notes in job interviews. So when it was Zoom interviews, that actually worked for my advantage. I have anxiety. I was able to kind of reference some things during my interview, and it really made a huge difference for me in my career. But what is that like for the interviewer? How is that viewed? Any tips or advice you guys have on that?
I think I love notes because it shows you're prepared, but don't over prepare in like coming to the interview with like 47 pages of questions, right? Like I have folks who like, when we say, do you have any questions? We expect you to have a question, right? Or two, but not too many, right? So like, it's this unspoken, delicate balance of like getting that just right. So, but yeah, be prepared. Like, again, that's a strength. And so, and if you need to refer to your notes, like awesome. Like people do that in their jobs all the time.
My specific hack on this is you think about a notebook. The left side of the page that you have open is your notes, your like quick things you want to remember. And then the right side is where you're taking notes, because nobody ever thinks about the left side. As far as they know, that's just notes from something else. Then you have it there as like your comfort blanket. Nobody needs to know.
And the only other thing that I would say is I'm going back to something that Mark said, and to answer another question, if an organization is not okay with you saying, hey, I've got a couple notes here, and then I've got my questions I've written down, and I also want to take some notes during this interview, is that okay? If they have a problem with that, I kind of worry about them.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Katrina, and I'm going to be kind of a contrarian to the trope about credentials being critical. With some empirical evidence and from my own experience. But the way that, everyone's is kind of assuming on the panel that most job seekers are at the interview stage. With 500 applicants on average, you have to get through the ATS system. And it's very similar to the college admissions process, where college admissions first looks, they do an algorithm and they filter the A's. They look at the quality of the school that they had attended, the high school, and maybe even, demographics. Now with
tell us about your question, Katrina.
So the question is how do you filter and extract storytelling from an ATS system when the people, that you're competing with FANG companies and Microsoft get preference?
So I'll start by saying keywords on your resume are critical. And so one of the things I'm looking for in an applicant is storytelling. Make sure the keyword storytelling is on your resume and your cover letter. But you're right. There are base things that we're looking for any job, but that you have to get through that door. But it isn't, when I started, you had to have a degree to get an interview at Google. And it had to be a degree from a set of schools that I didn't graduate from, and you had to have a GPA above. Those types of requirements, I do believe, have gone by the wayside. There's probably still exceptions out there, but not as much as it used to be. And you can demonstrate that you have the skills necessary from a broader set of things, like even including volunteer work, if it demonstrates you've got event planning skills. But you probably have the best advice.
Well, I know that what I'm about to say, it will be hard for people to believe, but in my last 3 jobs, I led recruiting, and I insisted that my recruiters read every resume. So we did not use the ATS to rule people out. So the first thing I'll say is there are still companies that do that.
And those companies were Tillamook,
Comcast, and Legacy. We read all of the resumes. We did not.
Meyer doesn't. OPB didn't.
So there's a lot of places that don't do that. So that's the first thing I'll say. But the second thing I'll say is it goes back to what I continue to say is do your research. So understand the job that you're applying for, understand what they're looking for, and make sure that your resume and your cover letter says that, because those, and it's not a guarantee, but those are the things that are going to help you differentiate yourself from the other folks that are out there applying.
Yeah. And I see when I'm meeting with a lot of HR folks, there's a rebellion against using AI, right? Nobody trusts it. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants to use it. So there's a huge rebellion of people in the hiring space that are saying, like, we're not filtering. We're not using any of these tools because, like, everything that we have learned from equity and all the work that we've trying to do about finding the right fit, it's like nothing is better than reading yourself.
So I believe you all, but there's a perception out there. Why do you think that perception is so persistent that it's difficult, if not impossible, to get through the ATS?
Because huge employers use it, right?
Yeah,
but like, let's look at Portland and Oregon. Like, how many of those huge employers actually are here in our community? The reality is most employers are not 10,000 people in size. They are 100, 200 people. And like, those organizations don't. But you only see what is the big promotions.
Yeah. And the reality of the hiring process is if you're applying, you're putting your resume into a black box, and you don't often know what's happening inside that black box. So it is very easy for perceptions to persist because you don't know. So I would believe that is part of it too.
Yeah, it's scary when the organization doesn't get back to you and say, we saw it.
And unprofessional too. So we have other questions, and thank you, Katrina, for raising that.
Hello. Thanks, Lisa. I'm Corinne Gould, and I'm asking this as a job seeker who has a lot of privilege, including parents who have been working in similar industries to me for a long time. But I'm also thinking a couple steps ahead of when I'm on the hiring committees, when I'm in my next role and I'm building a team. I really appreciated how you connected the thank you note etiquette to a tangible reason that person stands out. As a communicator, that is a skill, that is a value. It shows proactive, connective strategy and communication. Can you draw some lines for me for where bias is something you're thinking about in the hiring, as opposed to here's a tangible skill that someone's bringing, and here's where we're actually just filtering for like the most privileged person in the room, the person who had the most time on their hands to practice, the person who thinks on their feet and is neurotypical. How do you draw the line between is going to hit the ground running and is a great asset to the team and somebody who just has more at their disposal?
Are you talking about how to prevent that bias in the hiring process? I want to make sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I'm coming at it from two angles. I think sometimes I have an advantage as an applicant, and I'm trying not to feel guilty about that while leveraging that advantage. And I'm also thinking about my future where I'm going to be building a team, and I want to make sure I'm not accidentally falling into bias and calculating for the wrong thing when I'm looking for who stands out in the room.
I think every hiring manager wants to hire the best possible person. Like, I've never met a hiring manager. These are the program managers that I work with to like make those selections. They always want to hire the best possible person. And absolutely there is bias in there because the people who go to journalism school is filters. The people that then go to work at organizations where they're producing storytelling or those things, that is filtered up. And then they get referrals by those people who already exist. That is an incredible amount of bias in the system. And so how are those organizations disrupting that? Through like specific targeted recruitment strategies, engaging other outside partners to help them broaden that, to post in different locations, to do that community engagement. They're all doing that. But again, everyone's coming from this place like, all things being where they're at, I want the best possible person.
So one thing that we've started to do on my team, and it's been a while now, it used to be you'd come in and you'd meet with like 3 to 5 different people. You're parked in a conference room, you get the revolving door. Instead, now we do a interview panel where you come in. We usually give a subject prompt like, hey, come up with a plan for us on this specific thing. And you have instead, usually it's 3 people is our target, all listening to that at the same time. And we deliberately choose 3 people with different experience sets. They're not always from the same team. You'll bring in a partner, etc. Making that one conversation, we've found helps to make sure that there isn't like one kind of side experience that biases, etc. But I don't think there's a easy universal answer on that. I do love the hiring panel, though, for anybody who gets to be in a position to make decisions like that.
And I'll just add a couple of things. What we have done at places where I've worked is we have had a diverse interview panel.
Yeah.
So we have insisted that folks are diverse in that panel. And you can think about all the ways that diversity is not just ethnicity, it's all sorts of things. So we have had that. We have in certain roles, like leadership roles, we have required that there be a diverse candidate pool. So if you only have white males for a particular job, I'm going to need you to go back out and find me some more people because we need a diverse candidate pool.
Okay. Thank you, Corinne. Who has the next question? Lisa? Joni?
Hi, I'm Brett Rowland. Thanks for being here. I have 2 parts to a question. One, I'm wondering, as I've been interviewing, the length of time has seemed kind of crazy. 3 months. I'm wondering if you're seeing those trends, and also this ghosting of getting through 3, 4 interviews and just getting ghosted without explanation. Is it appropriate to go to I'm just curious thoughts around that.
So I can start and say, I would ask, I would reach out and ask. And I say that in the spirit of, you don't get 100% of the things you don't ask for. So as long as you are polite and constructive and you're like, hey, I'm assuming you've moved on with another candidate, would love to know, what happened, why I wasn't on your list. I think that is perfectly acceptable. And it's actually a good sign. You want to hear that from somebody. And you hit the right person and they are going to probably give you some feedback. On the length of the hiring process, I generally think it goes fast when it's like a focused priority. It goes slower when the hiring manager is stretched really thin and they're not able to prioritize going through. I was personally hiring for a role about a year ago, and halfway through the hiring process, my dad died. And I was a mess for a hot second, and I didn't get back to any. It was all dependent on me. The recruiter couldn't do anything without me talking to them. I didn't get back to candidates for 3 weeks in the middle of a process that included in-person interviews. And I lost one of the candidates. They got a job somewhere else, but that was a personal me thing. So you also don't know what's happening with the person that you're interviewing with. And there's that aspect of we're all weirdo humans in our own special way too. But it's so hard. You do just want some form of clarity.
Okay. Did you have a comment?
One, I'm sorry that has happened to you. I really, 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 really do not like when a person has been interviewed and they are not reached back out to give a decision. So that's the first thing. But then the second thing I would say to that is I completely agree. You should ask, but also, do you want to work there?
Yeah. We have time for one more question.
She's had her hand up over there.
Yeah, she's
okay.
With the braid. Hello. Thank you all for speaking with us. My question's a little bit niche, but I'll try to broaden it for everybody. So how would
tell us your name?
Oh, my name is Maddie. Sorry, Maddie Matthews.
That's okay. Yeah.
So as we're all kind of applying for jobs, there can be a challenge when you have something in your resume that either you don't feel will serve you in the best way to a hiring panel, or it might be some kind of anomaly. For me specifically, it's as I'm looking for jobs, my current position is great experience, feel very proud of the work I've done, but it's the company that I'm worried about. And so anybody Googling the name of that company might have some serious reservations about, oh, does this person agree with the mission behind this organization? And so I guess I'd like to know how to structure that in a resume without completely removing that experience, or should I be more bluntly honest in my cover letter and say, hey, I don't agree with these things, and I'd really like to move in another direction that more aligns with my values, without disparaging, your current employer.
That's what I was going to say, is use your cover letter, but do it in a way that you're saying that, my values are not aligned with where I'm currently working, which is the reason why I'm looking for work. That way you're not disparaging the organization. You're not saying they do X and I don't like it. You're just saying, I don't agree with, I'm not in alignment.
The thing I would add, I think employer is a uniquely hard one, and I love that that option. Years ago, there used to be a phrase that we would bandy about in corporate land of bring your whole self to work. I never bought into that phrase because look, my whole self is a bit of a weirdo. Like I'm going to throw a lot of movie quotes at you and do some like Homer Simpson jokes. You don't want that. You want like my professional self. So I think of it when like your profile on LinkedIn, your resume, whatever that may be, bring your best possible self. And that means you don't put everything on it. You are self-editing to being the best, truthful, authentic version of you to your resume, to your profile, to your cover letter. You don't have to have everything there, and it's okay. I don't think any employer would expect that either.
Terrific. Well, that brings our panel to a close. Our next event is going to be on May 7th, and we've got a QR code. I think, yes, it's right there if you want to take out your phone, and we'll leave that up if you'd like to learn more. It's going to be happening in downtown Portland, and we're going to be focusing on mentorship and job search. So let's before we begin our networking, let me just ask, is it okay for people in the audience to connect with each of you on LinkedIn?
Yes. Yes, I will say, follow me unless we actually have a conversation, and then I will accept a connection request. I have a hard rule that I only connect with people I know in real life.
Okay.
But I love
Agreed.
follows.
Okay.
Agreed.
And you can still get all the same stuff out of a follow.
Okay. All right. And each of you I know is going to be here for the next half hour. So if you'd like to talk to Mark, Nicole, and Felicia one-on-one, please take advantage of the time to do that. So thank you all for coming tonight, and please thank our panel.
Thank you for listening to Find Your Dream Job. You can support our show and help others find it by leaving a review and rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a question or a suggestion? Email me at mac@maxlist.org or connect with me on LinkedIn. To make sure you never miss an episode, sign up for our free weekly newsletter at maxlist.org/podcasts. This show is produced by MaxList. Susan Thornton Huff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislenberry Anderson manages our social media and creates our transcripts. Our sound engineer and editor is Megan Hattie Stahl. Our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week.